Believe it or not, New Year's Day was not written as an attempt to cash in on an underserved market for holiday music focused on January 1st. I don't think so anyway. Even so, if they didn't know any better, I'd be willing to wager that the majority of listeners believe the song is about the start of a new year. Actually, New Year's Day was U2's first truly popular song. It finally allowed them to reach the US charts for the first time, climbing as high as number 53 on the Billboard Hot 100. The song even peaked at number 10 in the UK, and all over the world people were starting to really notice this up-and-coming Irish band. New Year's Day sounds about as far apart from, say, Blue Christmas or any other holiday theme song you can imagine. When trying to figure out the bass line for Visage's Fade to Grey, bassist Adam Clayton unintentionally laid the groundwork for what would later become the song. And I'd suggest listening to Fade to Grey if you haven't already. You can definitely hear some similarities between the two songs. It's a classic synth-pop song from the 1980s. It almost sounds as if New Year's Day has an evil twin, but instead of having real drums, bass, piano, and guitar, it's more like a cyborg made entirely of analog and digital components, with synthesizers, programmed drums, and no guitars or other instruments at all. If nothing else, it gives you a good idea of the period, the late 1970s and early 1980s, during which guitar-based music was starting to gradually and slowly begin to lose popularity with the general public, before finally reaching a critical mass within the past 10 years or so, as pop music these days tops the charts, and a lot of it is heavily produced and synthetic too. And don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of some synth music, particularly that of the 1980s, but I think New Year's Day is 10 million times better than Fade to Grey. The Edge plays both the piano and the guitar parts on the song, which is pretty impressive. He even manages to play both parts when the band performs the song live. And his guitar playing is gloriously erratic, loud, and sporadic. His absence of the guitar during some passages actually makes you appreciate it more when it does come in. The guitar parts simply dominate the song. The piano and guitar are almost in a call and response relationship. The eerie, mellow, and exquisitely depressing hook is played by the piano. Meanwhile, the guitar enters ferociously, as if confused and enraged, with muted strings, harmonics, and biting leads played on the higher strings. It almost seems like it's searching for the piano, that it's having trouble finding it, and that it wants to help it, as if it were the piano part's savior, perhaps. And if you've ever seen the official music video for the song, then maybe you'll be able to picture what I'm talking about. The band is seen standing in the middle of a snowy field in the middle of nowhere in the music video, and they appear to be in imminent danger of freezing to death if they don't receive assistance soon. Then there are these four mysterious figures riding around on horses who seem to be looking for them in the snowy woods. The band is metaphorically similar to the piano part in that they are helpless, afraid, and lost. In the same way that the guitar is metaphorically lost and frantically looking around, the horse riders are also trying to save the band from freezing weather before it's too late. The Edge has always been a source of musical inspiration for me as a guitarist. He's famous for his innovative use of delay and other effects. It goes without saying that I was blown away by the guitar work performed on New Year's Day. Personally, I think it's the best part of the song. For the entire 4 minutes and 15 seconds of our trip, however, the cool groove of the bass line and the steady thump of the straight-time drum beat provide an ever-present backdrop for our story and keep the suspense alive and oh-so-immediate sounding. In fact, if you go to the official music video for the song on YouTube and turn on closed captions, the song will start with the subtitles, "Moody Rock Music," at the very beginning, and that's an understatement. Another highlight of the song is the offbeat drum fill at about 3 minutes and 50 seconds into the song, just before the end. It's a nice change of pace from the song's steady beat, and it also serves as a precursor to the song's eventual fade-out. It's like there was never a final answer in the song's story, only steps forward in the journey, and yet they must keep going until the end of time. And let's not forget the vocals, of course. Bono is many things, and a good singer is one of them. The song obviously would not be the same with anyone else taking the mic, but the ohs and ahs in the chorus are without a doubt my favorite part of the song's vocals. The band pulls the rhythm in a little tighter for the chorus, and then we hear the ohs and ahs in the background, and it works wonderfully to delineate the chorus from the verses. The song consists primarily of verses and choruses, so this is a great way to add some depth, and it serves as an excellent demonstration that you don't need to go too crazy with the chorus by, say, switching to a completely different key or drum beat. Sometimes you can get away without even altering the chord progression at all. One of the other vocal highlights is found right at the song's outset. When the song begins, we're thrust into the action of the story as the piano hook, bass line, and the shaker begin to play, and then you can hear Bono shout "yeah" in the background. And then at about 8 seconds, the sound of the drums burst in with 3 jarring beats establishing the foundation of the song. The song establishes a powerful mood early on and maintains it throughout. The piano hook is instantly recognizable and stands among U2's most memorable riffs. The rest of the instruments back it up beautifully, and all the instruments feed off each other, and it makes for some great synergy. I can only assume the band had just as much fun performing the song as the audience does listening to it. When the lyrics begin, however, we don't learn anything about anyone's hopes for the upcoming year, such as their resolutions to lose weight or save some money for a vacation. No, in reality, the song is about the solidarity movement in Poland. Indeed, this is a song about a social movement that took place at the time it was written. And I was aware the song was supposed to be political, but for the longest time, I had assumed the song had something to do with a conflict in Ireland. But the song I was thinking of was Sunday Bloody Sunday, the first track on the same album. That song is about a conflict in Northern Ireland. Both of these tracks were taken from the album War, which, as the name suggests, is largely concerned with conflicts that were occurring around the world in the 1980s. And this album marked a turning point for U2 in terms of the public's awareness of the band's political leanings. I wish I could shed some more light on the nature of the solidarity movement, but I simply don't know enough about it. I can tell you, however, that at least some of the lyrics are about the end of martial law in Poland on January 1st. And Bono claims he improvised most of the song's lyrics, so there you go. I know U2 can be a divisive subject amongst music fans sometimes, especially due to the politics for which they're notorious. The things Bono has done have irritated some listeners, and this may be why many do not like him. But I'm not here to talk about that. I can't claim to be up to date on Bono and U2's political stances. For what it's worth, I have a soft spot for the 80s era simply because their music was all over the radio when I was a kid, and it was refreshingly different from what I had heard up to that point. Maybe I'm biased because I really dig the band's 1980s music, especially the guitar work, but also the drums, bass, vocals, and harmonies. There's nothing else quite like it. Thus, I can look past the band's political leanings in New Year's Day and other earlier songs. Punk rock had already been one of my favorite genres for quite some time before I discovered post-punk. It's cool to think back on the 80s and realize that many of the most popular bands actually retained some punk influences despite expanding their musical palettes considerably. Knowing that punk's initial musical impact was so substantial is satisfying to a punk music fan like myself. Some of the most distinctive and interesting guitar sounds in post-punk and new wave came from guitarists who used little to no distortion and instead cranked up effects like chorus, delay, and reverb. U2 was able to combine post-punk and new wave styles into their own unique alternative rock sound eventually. A major turning point comes with the release of their album The Joshua Tree in 1987, when the band began incorporating elements of gospel and other styles. Even though The Joshua Tree is still my favorite overall album of theirs, I think New Year's Day was a turning point in their career and a great representation of when their sound began to take shape. The band had previously released 2 albums, October and Boy, prior to this one. War was the last album to have a one-word title before 1984's The Unforgettable Fire. And who can forget The Unforgettable Fire? It's possible that this album's title was meant to be a metaphor for the band's decision to burn it all down and start fresh with their sound after war, the album that marked a huge change in their discography. So in conclusion, if you haven't heard these early works from the group, then it's safe to say you owe it to yourself to do so. Why not make it your New Year's resolution?